Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, I'm going to be talking to you guys about how to dominate your solo spot. This video is not going to be on places to land. I know the upcoming solo events, yes, a lot of you guys are probably looking for places to land. This video is not about that because I think those videos kind of defeat the purpose because it just reveals, makes a bunch of low-key spots really popular, which is not what you want. So this video, I'm going to be focusing more on how to dominate your landing spot once you've picked it. Um, so I'm going to be using my landing spot as an example in this game. I'm actually there right now. So before I do that, though, I do want to establish why I decided to pick this area actually as a landing spot. So if I just pick up my controller here, so I can move myself around easier. So on this landing spot, the reason I pick it is because one, it's relatively close to center zone. I know that there's like an extra minute added to first circle, so that's actually not like a necessity, but I do favor the idea of almost always having zone, or if not, if you don't get first circle, you're really close to it, so you can position yourself better in the early game. Another thing I also look for is guaranteed shields. For those of you who don't know this spot, this clove of trees right here actually has a bunch of mushrooms, and over here there are a couple slurp barrels. That's what I like about it, right? There's a guaranteed aspect of potentially guaranteed shield, given the fact that you're not contested, and I'm going over what to do when you're contested at your landing spot later. And the third thing about this is that there are a lot of chests on my loot path. There's a lot of loot to be had, right? There's 2 chests up here, 3 down here. I believe there are 3 along this road, and then 5 or 6 more along this bridge. So it's just overall just a lot of loot, which increases your chances of finding something you want. So that's why I picked this landing spot. So now I'm going to go ahead and start talking about how I personally think I do pretty well at this landing spot with the way I played out early game, and how I think you guys can do something maybe similar with your landing spots. So first of all, you guys will notice that even though this whole area is my landing spot, right, this bridge, this mountain, and this clover trees, I choose to land up here every single game, and I always try to have the best drop so that I can land up here and force anyone who's potentially also trying to come up here to go down there or to go towards the bridge, which are the only other 2 options outside of going to risky here. So I try to have the best drop. If I can't, obviously I either 50-50, which I won't be doing in the solo FNCS. I'll probably just go, or I go to one of these other locations, right? But the reason I want to land up here, and this is important, guys, because I saw a post on the competitive subreddit earlier. This was a month ago. About how phew actually always alphas his drop spot, whether it's in solos, trios, squads, duos, whatever it is. And the way he does it is that he always lands on height. And I've been landing at this spot way before. I even saw that, but it really made me think about an idea for a video, right? Because me landing on height right here gives me basically all of the power and all the control over my immediate landing spot. The same way phew does. Kind of establish control. When he was landing on that meteor back in Season X, he could beam kids out of the sky, and I can kind of do that here as well, but that's not really the priority. So the reason I land up here is because if I'm contested, if I have the best drop here, and I force a player off this mountain to go try and land somewhere else, I have immediate control because, one, I can see them, right? I can see them completely clearly, all the way across, down this road, all the way to the bridge. I can see all of this. They can't see me at all because all I have to do is literally sit down here and crouch, right? Up here, I have 2 chests, right? I have some loot I can get. An AR would be preferred out of my first chest, actually. And now I have the choice between what to do, how to split my landing spot. So, an important thing that people overlook in landing spots is that they always feel like if there's someone there, you actually have to fight. Now, I'm not saying, don't fight people. I'm saying you don't necessarily have to fight an uncontested landing spot to be uncontested. And what I mean by that is when I land up here, if I know that someone lands down here, I don't actually have to push him, right? I don't have to push him straight away. I can choose to simply go down and try and loot bridge. Obviously, if there's someone at bridge, then I have to weigh my options depending on my loot, right? And if you're going for a more W key game or a more aggressive game, maybe you need the kill points, whatever. If I'm doing that and I land here, I immediately look at my loot, right? I opened 1 chest, I got pretty shambles loot. And I know that the drop thing isn't in competitive, but we'll slide past it. So I get a gold score, right? So now I can make the choice of, do I think this person who has 3 chests down there is going to get better loot than me, right? And obviously I have access to mats up here as well. I have these 2 rocks, trees, fences, a couple cars, right? So now I can make the choice between either pushing him if I get good loot, or deciding to loot a different part of my loot path if I don't. So pushing your opponent early, when you're contested at a landing spot, is actually pretty big, because if you're the one pushing, it doesn't give your opponent like much time to react, and they'll probably be forced to fight with whatever loot they have. The downside is obviously, if you don't have the loot you want to be pushing with, you're going to force yourself to fight with the loot that you have. And that's actually a big part of why I land up here also, because if I don't get the loot I want from here, there is no chance, like a 0% chance, that anyone who lands down here will decide to push me. I'm in control. I decide if I want to push them, or if I don't, they will never push me because I'm way on height here. It's really high. They probably don't have a lot of mats early game. They can't quickly push me either because they're quickly trying to loot actually before they get pushed. If they see me land up here, like I know that every time I'm forced to land down there, I always quickly try and loot because I'm always expecting to get pushed from up here. So that's another part, right? So the first aspect I really want you guys to get from this, from what I'm saying right now, is that when you're landing at your landing spot, wherever it may be, you really want to always have like a really good like position that you want to put yourself in. And this can be in bunch of things, right? Like in Slurpee, for example, you guys know there's like that cigarette. That's what people call it, like that little tower. That gives you, really good view of all Slurpee and gives you quite a lot of control as well. Obviously, I don't know Slurpee as well as I do my own landing location. So I don't want to get like too far into that. Like Lazy Lake, you could probably potentially like land up top one of the buildings. You notice that none of the pros who land lazy actually ever go for like just the bottom floors, because that doesn't give you any control at all. It doesn't let you see anything. It doesn't give you information, and information is really important in the early game. So first part is, honestly, height does kind of matter, right? Off spawn, landing on top, agency, whatever. And the second part is making the decision based on how aggressive, passive or aggressive you are as a player, or as required by the game. You might be in a W key game, and then making the choice based off the loot, whether to push or to take advantage of your looting path. And I don't want to just use my landing spot as like the only example, because you guys might be like, oh, it doesn't apply to my landing spot. So I'm gonna also go over Steamy. Like, let's say if I land like in this building, right? Oh no, actually that's a bad example. Let's say if I land in, actually no, that's a perfectly fine example. I can use that. So if I land here and I get pretty shambles loot, and the only other person contesting me is landing here, I can then make the choice of, instead of pushing him, I can quickly rush back towards this building and this area to quickly try and loot to get better loot, so I can better prepare for the fight. And Steamy also has the advantage of the flying things, where if you get really shambles loot and you go back here and you still don't get what you want and you feel like you might get pushed, you can potentially position yourself in a way so that you can use the wind tunnels to get away. Or, what if you're not at Steamy, right? You don't have the option of that. If you don't, let's say if you land risky and you land at this big building right here and you don't really get the loot you want, maybe two other people land, right? Two people, like there's a guy here and a guy up here. You can't really loot anything else in Steamy because this guy's loot path is probably going to cross into yours. His loot path is probably going to cross into yours. You don't get the loot you want. You don't want to fight. And, you get like a couple pistols and AR. So now you can make the choice of, hey, I'm going to have to take the passive route here. I can't push the opponent because I don't have the loot that I want. So instead, what I'm going to do to not die off spawn is rotate out the back here. Get, there are a couple trucks here. And then maybe potentially try and rotate into this triple chest spawn, or try and rotate towards Frenzy down here to, there's some shambles loot over here, but the point is you're not going to die off spawn if you do that. So that's the second thing, basing off your loot, and you should always guarantee yourself at least like a couple chests, some sort of loot spawns. Basing off your very, very early game loot, your like basically what I like to call initial loot, which is what you get literally right off spawn. You can make the choice whether to push or to be passive, and this also comes in with a lot of knowledge as well. You have to know your landing location pretty well, because I know that if I push this kid, I know he has access to 3 chests, some 4 loots, in the bushes. If I push him quickly, he won't have time to get off more than 1 or 2 mushrooms, right? And I know that whoever's pushing here is going to have a couple like a chest, some slurp barrels. He's going to have some guaranteed shield. So, right, same thing applies if, like, let's say you're landing risky. You have to. There's one other person he landed here. You know that he has access to like 3 or 4 chests, whereas you have access to like 2 or 3. You didn't get good loot. and you have to like kind of base it off, right? Like if you know your opponent only gets one chest before you push them, then even if you don't get the best loot, you get like 2 ARs and some shield, you might still want to push them because they only have one chest, and basically their whole game might be banking on that one chest being good, which chests are normally pretty bad early game for me. So that's another thing you can base it off on as well, as to whether you want to push an opponent early game or not. Let's see, what else do I want to cover? So quickly, just gonna repeat over what I've said this video, like in like a TLDW, too long didn't watch kind of format. So establish control over your landing spot. Potentially, this doesn't always apply, but most of the time I think it's done by landing on height, because it does give you more vision, more control. Like here in my example, I have the choice between going down there, or depending on my loot, I can go somewhere else. You know, I can see other players, I can intimidate them, right? Mind games are kind of big early game as well. So yeah, I established control over my entire area, literally just by landing here, right? I force other opponents to be wary of me, to be aware of me pushing them and they're not able to push me, right? And the second thing I went over is using your initial loot, which is the loot you get right off spawn. So for me, it's this stuff and then some mats. And loot, you guys should also like consider what mats you have, right? And what mats your opponent might have access to. Like if the guy lands at that truck, I know he's gonna have like a ton of wood. And then making the choice of your initial loot, whether to take the aggressive route and push your opponent before they can set themselves up, or to play passive and back off and loot, right? And in playing passive as well, you don't necessarily have to play passive until you get the loot you want and then push them. You can literally, what I can literally do if I get pretty bad loot and I decide to go back there, I get a gold spaz up there, and I might decide just not to push this kid because I don't know if he's rotating towards me. I might check, right? But he might be rotating away. I'm not going to push this straight away. I'm just going to finish my loot path if I'm not contested. So just because you're playing passive in the first part does not mean you have to play aggressive at all. And that kind of plays into what I'm saying as well. Like, you don't necessarily have to find an uncontested landing spot. I don't want to mess up anyone who's landing here, so I'm really sorry. But let's say if you land up at these houses, it's a pretty passive spot, right? You're probably looking to get uncontested. Versus if you get contested here, you're probably going to have to fight. Versus if you're landing steamy, even if it's with like 2 other players, it is actually very possible in steamy to position yourself such that, 1, you know where the other players are and you have control, and 2, so that you're actually able to loot, and if you don't want to fight, you actually might not probably won't have to fight at all. Like if the 2 players land here and you land here, you can loot up, right? Maybe you hear them fighting or something. If you don't want to fight, you can literally just fly out or rotate down back here to all this loot back here and just leave. So it's actually very possible to land at like named POI or contested location and not end up fighting at all. Now, this obviously doesn't apply to like people. Let's say you land at this disco house. If another kid contests you here, you're gonna have to fight. There's literally no way you can like get like a couple chests and leave, unless you're like cheating or something, or teaming with them. So I guess what I'm trying to say is you don't necessarily have to land at like a low-key location to get uncontested. You can literally land at like Salty, maybe. Oh no, Salty is not a good example. You can land at Sweaty, provided 10 kids don't go there. Literally loot like this area and just hop the fuck out. Like you can literally loot up. You can do like split loot paths on so many different like named locations and not actually have to fight. So yeah. So just to go over what I'm talking about in this video again before I end the video. This video is kind of long and I'm kind of talking a lot. Hopefully I'm not repeating myself too much, but establish control, potentially by landing on height. Use your initial loot and your initial mats to calculate whether you want to push the opponent. Obviously, you need to have knowledge of your own skill as well, right? Like, everyone's skills are different. I know some people who just aren't as good as others, like, probably want to play the more passive game. But use your initial loot to calculate whether you want to quickly rush the opponent, catch them off guard, or if you want to back off and find something better to hold or to have in your inventory. And after you get something better, if your opponent hasn't pushed you yet, make the choice, if you know where they are, whether you want to push them or you want to just disengage and move away and make the rotation to zone. So yeah, that's going to be it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed yourselves. I hope I didn't talk too much. Obviously, if there's a great landing spot that I use my example, please don't contest me here. And just one final note, in the next video, I want to talk about rotating dead side or taking a dead rotate path when you're not on dead side, because like this video is kind of saying you don't necessarily have to land. Like what I'm trying to say in this video is you don't have to land at like a very low key location to not fight off spawn. Like you can contest someone and then still not fight off spawn. But what a lot of people don't realize is that you can actually rotate without running into like a ton of people or giving yourself the quote unquote dead rotate. Um, Even when you're on a very congested side of zone. So that's probably going to be the topic for my next video. If you guys want to see that, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you want to see more stuff like this, guys, where I just kind of like, it's almost like a podcast, I just kind of like talk on, please let me know in the comments, right? So I know if you guys enjoy this content. If you don't, also, please let me know, so I don't make more of these and waste my time and yours. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. I hope you can enjoy. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Yeah, peace out.